or the black Israelites, but it seems like the Anglo-Israelites do the same thing as well. I tweeted today, because I was watching a documentary on this, a number of British Israelites miniature testimonials, and it's from a larger documentary about the lost tribes of Israel, and this particular part of the documentary was about the British Israelites, and everyone they interviewed said, well, once I understood I was an Israelite, the Bible made sense to me. Now everything opened up. It's as if like they didn't fully understand the Bible, and that now they have this key that explains it. And so the interpretations aren't wild to them anymore. But let me give you one example of what they do. Genesis 22:17 says this, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. Listen to how the British Israelites interpret this. They say it's supposed to be a prophetic picture of the British people and the people of the United States who can control Gibraltar, Malta, Heligoland, Suez, Aden, and Singapore. So like canals that they control. You see what I'm
saying? Okay, yeah. So earlier in this, you got to watch the whole thing. Earlier in this, he said that this so-called Israelite thing is this Anglo-Israelite thing, which I only think he's doing it because Apostle Dahar said you only come against the so-called, what you call black Hebrew Israelites or Hebrew Israelism as he would call it. What about the people who say that they're Israel over there, who don't fit the narrative of them being in the land, and there's not supposed to be any sickness, any death, any wars, but yet there's wars, there's sickness and death, and then they're over there so-called humping the Welling Wall, and nothing is being changed. You don't question. So I think he's trying to throw this in there to be like, oh no, I'm not only doing that, so I'm throwing this. Okay, but say this thing is older. They're still talking about possessing rivers and this and that. Well, it tell you that we will not have any possessions in the end time, that we will be at the bottom, that we will be in the hands of our enemy. So how can we possess rivers and land and stuff? So that lets you know that this so-called Anglo-Israelism that you're talking about, that can't be the people, because what? They possess things. They're owning things. They're running things, right?
The Israelites would be scattered to the other ends of the known earth world, which would be Assyria, potentially, depending on how you view the world at the time. And Egypt seems to be on like the far outskirts as well.
So those are two places where Israel actually was captive. So Assyria came in 722, destroyed the northern kingdom, and Assyria liked to displace people and put them in other places to minimize, well, Assyria was kind of a cruel empire, but also to minimize rebellion and whatnot. So this is something Assyria...
So even with his own mouth, so he says Assyria would separate people and put them in different places. And so which he did not go to 2nd Esdras 13 and 40, which tell you that they went to Arzareth, but not every northern kingdom went to Arzareth. Right? By his own mouth, he just said, yeah, Assyria would displace people to try to minimize rebellion. So those other people went to these different places. Did they stop being Israelites because vocab picked up a Bible? Because you're talking thousands of years that they probably had children, their children had children, their children have children, and in being displaced in a place that you're no longer calling yourself Israel. But you don't stop becoming it. You don't stop being an Israelite because vocab picked up a Bible.
Well, it did. And of course, Egypt housed Israel, young Israel, you might say, for 400 years or so, depending on how we do all that time reckoning, according to the biblical narrative, to those who understand that. And so these are two examples of empire and two places where Israelites had been. But the thing is, it mentions in Isaiah 19, the passage I brought up, it mentions Israel along with them. It says Israel the third. And so you can't make all three Israel and conflate them down. But that's what they'll do, either by saying these are scattered Israelites, or the other thing I've heard them do is say, well, Israel itself can be identified by other place names. So Assyria and Egypt are simply different ways to refer to Israel. But the problem is you just destroy the meaning of the text, because you can do that anywhere. But there has to be a reason why you're making those moves. Like, it's true the Bible has symbolism, and it's true context determines meaning. These are true things.
So like I said, when it says Egypt, it means Egypt. When it says Assyria, it means Assyria, right? But when you say the Lord shall send ye into what bondage again with ships, and when you go there you should be sold, that don't mean that. Nope. If you go to this version, it says that you're gonna sell yourself and no one's gonna buy you. Well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't go along with the narrative. It doesn't go along with the Hebrew. It doesn't go along with any of that thing. Right? It doesn't fit. Because name of people who went somewhere and sold themselves and no one bought them. Because it's in the Bible, so it has to be in history. It has to be somewhere along the line in history where you could find that. Because even now they're gonna trade you out for what? For work, as far as what? A place to stay. You know what? You don't have no money. You don't have this. Okay. Well, in order for you to stay here, you'll work it off. That's still like paying you. That's not grabbing you up like a prisoner and forcing you every morning, every day, like they did to us, and they sold us. So it has to, okay.
But the move has to be justified in some way from the text or from a larger narrative that makes sense. But what they do is they have misinterpreted passages in front of another one that guide and determine everything that they have after that. This is more of the black Israelites, but it seems like the Anglo-Israelites do the same thing as well. I tweeted today, because I was watching a documentary on this, a number of British Israelites miniature testimonials, and it's from a larger documentary about the lost tribes of Israel. And this particular part of the documentary was about the British Israelites. And everyone they interviewed said, well, once I understood I was an Israelite, the Bible made sense to me. And now everything opened up. It's as if like they didn't fully understand the Bible, and that now they have this key that explains it. And so the interpretations.
Doesn't the Bible talk about the keys of David? You got to have the keys of David, because David is going to have someone on David's throne, which is an Israelite, forever. Though you come in and now there's no Israelites. And then the people who you have no problem with saying that they're Israel or Jewish or whatever, they don't fit the prophecies.
Wild to them anymore. But let me give you one example of what they do. Genesis 22:17 says this, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. Listen to how the British Israelites interpret this. They say it's supposed to be a prophetic picture of the British people and the people of the United States who can control Gibraltar, Malta, Heligoland, Suez, Aden, and Singapore. So like canals that they control. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be there.
Which will prove that they're not Israelites because they're controlling things. And that's like a very important resource. That's better than money. If you could control water or control ports where people could drink that water or people could pass through those canals, that's power. No, it tells you that the Israelites are going to be in subjection to their enemy in the land of the heathen, in subjection. These heathen that were ever reputed as nothing have become lords, rulers over us. Right? The Lord said, I shall put you in the hands of your enemy, and they shall not regard the young nor the old. So they'll put a young man to death. They'll put a old man to death. They're going to separate your families. That only happened to the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. They're going to take your land. They're going to take your cattle. Didn't that happen to the natives? Right? Then when you get there, you're going to be sold to your enemy. That happened to us. But when it comes to these people, that it doesn't mean that. But then he talk about misplacing and taking scriptures and putting scriptures in a place that it doesn't belong. But then when there's no other way around it. We have to be those people. Yeah, this is 2nd Esdras 6 and 54, which vocab mentioned Esdras 1, and then he goes to it and then says, oh yeah, well, Israelites are here and there and they're scattered, but then there's this thing where, you know, the Gentiles can come in because of this and that. But then he doesn't go to 2nd Esdras 13 and 40, or he doesn't even go to 2nd Esdras right here, 6, you know, because 6 and 40 tells you where, you know, talks about Ozrith, right? Then he's saying that there's no such thing as the 10 tribes being missing. But in 2nd Esdras 13:40 on down tells you about the 10 tribes. So if you're not saying it's not missing, that they're not missing, but then you mention 2nd Esdras or Esdras, which is in the Apocrypha, but then at the same time say it's not canon because it doesn't fit your narrative. So you're the one who add and take away from the scriptures. Well, let's get to this. 2nd Esdras 6 and 54. And after these, Adam also, whom thus made its Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, right? So everybody on planet Earth after Noah and the flood, everybody comes out of that seed line of Adam, and him and the people, and so everybody comes out of it. And let's make an addition to what we just said. That's what "and" means, in addition to what I just said. So everybody comes out of Adam, but and the addition, the people also whom thus has chosen. So the Lord has a chosen people, period. You know, that's it. You know what I mean? Actually, look, if you look at it, that's what it does. And the people also whom thus has chosen, period. Literally, even in a sentence, period. There's nothing else to talk about. Right? About other nations and this and that and Gentile. Man, cut it out. All these have I spoken before thee, O Lord, right? Which is Yahweh. Because thus made it the world for our sake. Who was the world made for? For the sake of the people he has chosen. The whole world was made for their sake. That's it. Yeah, there's other people in it, but the people who thus has chosen, you made the world for our sake. Which also means the people that's in it. So when they're saying other people are going to go into slavery, and yes, you're made for our sake. Even the people in it, the plants, the people, the birds, you're made for our sake. I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to come on anything else. But as for the other people, which also come of Adam, thus has said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, right? They're nothing. and has likened the abundance of them, which is like the multitude of them, unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And I mean, you can't get nothing else out of that. The world, the people, and the people thus has chosen, thus has made the world for our sake. Now he's saying the other people who come out of Adam, they're nothing. They're like a drop that fall from a vessel. It's nothing. It means nothing. Right? I mean, I don't know how you get anything else. And now, oh Yahweh, and this is one of my favorite scriptures right here. This is one of my favorite part. And now, oh Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, or it says, oh Lord, right? Behold, which means feast your eyes, look, pay attention. Behold, which means, careful examination. The elders always talk about being circumspect. So this is where you're paying attention. You're really honing in on this. And I said, oh Lord, behold, look, pay attention. These heathen, so all these other nations, so how can they get in the blessing? So these are the people the Lord has chosen, but these other nations who the Lord has not chosen, these heathen which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. But we, thy people, you know what I'm saying, whom thus has called thy firstborn, matter of fact, let's go to that. Wait, so this is Exodus 4, and if you want to, you can read all of Exodus 4, but I'm just going to go straight to the point, which is talking about in Egypt. It says, and thus shall say unto Pharaoh, right, which he's talking to Moses, telling Moses to say to the Pharaoh or the king of Egypt, thus saith Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. So the Lord's firstborn is who? Israel, the nation of Israel. So when you go back here to 2nd Esdras, chapter 6, verse 58, but we, thy people, whom thus has called thy firstborn, is who? Talking about who? Israel. That's how you know it's talking about Israel. Thy only begotten and thy fervent lover are given into their hands, if the world now be made for our sake. Oh, there you go. He's saying it again. The world is made for our sake. Why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? Right? Because if the Lord's chosen people are the Israelites, and he made the world for their sake, he's not going to give them back the world. You know what I mean? Which was what it was made for in the purpose. So he's not going to initiate his first purpose from the beginning. Because if you have a child and you punish him, and your thing is, I want you to go to college, I want to have you a nice job, I want you to have a wife and this and that. Do you when you ground him, do you ground the kid to the point that says, you know what, you're so grounded now you don't get to go to have your first job at 16. When it's time for you to go to college, you know what? You're grounded. You don't get to go to college. You know, your girlfriend, whatever that becomes your fiance. No, you're so grounded. You don't get to have a girlfriend and fiance. No, you know what? You know what? Forget your future altogether. Or do you say, no, I'm punishing you for the time being, but so you can learn what you did, so that way you become a productive person in your future, which ultimately is what the Lord has been doing, punishing us so we could be productive rulers of the world, the new world, the true new world, or the true new world order. And this is Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. I know thy works and tribulation, right? Tribulation and poverty, right? Because that's what the Israelites were going to be in, being that what? These heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have become lords over us. They were going to have the Israelites in poverty, not running the Suez and all these canals and all this other stuff, saying that this is a fulfillment of prophecy. How is that a fulfillment of prophecy when it says you're going to be in poverty? And that the heathen were going to rule over you. So if you're ruling things, how are you being ruled by heathens? Doesn't make sense. But thus are rich, right? Spiritually rich. We're rich because we inherit the kingdom of heaven through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through the literal seed line, through the genos, through the gene, right? Not because you're some servant and you get circumcised. Now all of a sudden you are a inheritance of this thing. You know how many servants that Abraham had? And most likely they had children. And those children had children. So you going back, let's go all the way back to Abraham. So those children of those, just the servants, let's just pretend. And those servants, so where are those people at? Why ain't they coming forth and saying, you know what? Well, we're servants too, and we've all, matter of fact, they make it illegal for you to well, not illegal, but they make you pay to be circumcised here in America. If you're such an American and you're such with this thing, even us being servants, we shouldn't have to pay to be circumcised. Matter of fact, why it ain't a requirement across the land? Even with those so-called Jewish rule, so-called being in Israel, why ain't they having a thing where it's, since they're supposed to be ruling, why ain't they ruling the world and having the world all be circumcised? And seeing that if we could all be circumcised, matter of fact, he need to ask those other people if anybody else can, because they're constantly calling everybody else goyim. So they don't feel like anybody can just come into this, because they're constantly calling other people goyim. So if they're calling you goyim, you don't fit into their narrative. The so-called Jewish that lives in the land of Israel, they're going to call you goyim. Do you fit into their narrative? Doesn't make sense. It says, but thus are rich, and I know the blaspheme of them, right? These dudes who saying you're Christian or saying you're Jewish. I know the blasphemy of them which say that they are Jews, because even you saying you're Christian is like a way of you saying that you're a Jew, that you're Jews. Saying you're Christian is saying you're Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. The real Israelites are in subjection under the heathens, and they're in poverty. Right? And they're being lied to by people who saying that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, or the chief house of our enemy, because Satan just means adversary. So they're the chief. So we're under these heathens, which are our adversaries. So it doesn't make sense for you to be talking bullshit. Like, that's dumb. So this is the British Israelism, right? This is a Anglo-Saxon Federation of America, right? Let's look into that word federation. Okay.
Federation. Federation.
Okay, yeah, federation, a group of states, right? When we're under our enemies as the heathen that have ever been reputed as nothing have become lords over us, we don't have no states. With a central government. We don't have a government. We're overran by the heathen. We're oppressed, right? Under the heathen. But independent of the eternal affairs, right? We don't have that. That's let you know that that's so-called, these white people, like they said, their so-called blessing was they could rule over these rivers and stuff like that. There's nowhere in the Bible that said the Israelites will be ruling over some rivers and all this other stuff. Yeah, so this is not a good look, vocab. You're bringing up British Israelism, which is connected to what? The Ku Klux Klan. Focus of Ku Klux Klan, America, Nazis, and Christian identity, right? Which we know that that's basically going back to your British Israelism, right? So if they're connected to the Nazis, and the Nazis are from Germany, but then Germany is under the British Israelism is Esau. So there's a dilemma in the way they're thinking, and even you bringing this mess up. So then we'll really know that they're not the people. They didn't fall under the curses of Deuteronomy 28. They don't even fall under the other curses or the Great Awakening, because they said they know who they are. Right? They could date their thing all the way back to Moses and all these other great things, right? So it's tied into Nazism, which proved that you are in rulership and not under subjection, right? Basically having a government, and the government was working for your benefit, right? And you're not poor if you have a government and the government is working for you, and you could kill people and then go to court and no one can testify against you. That's rulership. Like I said earlier, he talked about Second Esdras or Esdras 1, and then gave some nonsense about how, yeah, it said that some of the northern kingdom were over there. Well, why didn't you go to this, where it actually explains to you in the Apocrypha where the northern kingdom went? But he's doing that to these Christians because Christians are not really going to study. But that does not change who the Most High is. So, I mean, hey, when the day come, vocab is going to get, because the Lord said even the people, his own chosen people who teaches men to do so are going to be least in the kingdom. So you're already least in the kingdom because you're Edomite. You're going to be outside the temple. So how much more punishment are you really actually going to get by misleading the people? So it says, 2 Esdras chapter 13 verse 40, those are the 10 tribes. So those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land, right? Where's their land? Their land is what? Samaria. That's where you get the word Good Samaritan. That's why the Lord was mentioning that, because yes, there were some Samaritan or some people from Israel still there. But the bulk or majority of Samaria, when the Lord was there, were actually imposers. They were pretenders. They were posers. You know, kind of like we have right now with the small hats. You know, no different. Or even Christians, you're posers. You're pretending to be this something that you're not, which Christian actually meant something negative. It's not a good connotation to have on you, and which you're gonna find out it's not gonna be anyway, right? At the end, because they're already categorizing you just like they categorize everybody. Now you're the Christian identitist. So the Christian identitist, the federal government is gonna come after you. The military, the National Guard, looking for Christians, gunning them down. But let's get to this real quick. But out of their own land in the time of OC, right? Who? Hosea. Which Hosea said it. Hosea, what is it? 10. Chapter 1, verse 10. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Hosea chapter 1, verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. Right? So how do you say who's who and where they're at if it can't be measured nor numbered? And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Right? So the only ones that's actually really truly getting that is the so-called what they call Hebrew Israelism, or they want to put the negative connotation of black on it, and then he tried to say that that's not incorrect. No, it is incorrect because it's negative. Black is a negative connotation, right? So basically, the children of Israel are going to be everywhere, and in time they're not going to know that they're the Israelites. But then when they finally know that they're the Israelites, there's going to be people who saying, no, you're not the people, which that's happening today, right? People are saying that the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Hispanic, Puerto Rican, all the way down to the so-called Native American, to the Puerto Rican, to the Mexicans, are not Israelites, right? Right? They're trying to say that Deuteronomy 28 ain't talking about the so-called black man or the Israelites at whole, because what we know that the so-called Puerto Ricans went into slavery on ships, the natives went into slavery on ships, right? The Mexicans went on slavery on ships. All these different Israelites went on slavery on ships, but that doesn't mean that. That's why the so-called Anglo, that's never was the angle of Deuteronomy 28, right? They never bring up Deuteronomy 28, right? The so-called small hatters, the Jewish, never brings up Deuteronomy 28. If you can go through the whole Bible and somehow fit yourself in, but then not be able to, you can't fit yourself in Deuteronomy 28. Yeah, you got to come in the volume of the book, man. The entire book, even that one page or one thing, all that matters. Obadiah is one chapter, but it matters. Jude is one but it matters, right? So it says, Salakia, where's that? Yeah, OC. The king whom Salmanassar, king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came to another land, but they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, which the heathen, whoever reproved us nothing, who have become lords over us. They said, hey, let's leave these heathen that's become lords over us and go into a further country where never mankind dwelt, right? Which we know that that's America, right? That they might there keep their statutes, right? With the law, statutes, commandments that was given by Moses, which they never kept in their own land, and they enter into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the floods till they were passed over, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, right? And it wouldn't take a year and a half to sail from Israel over to so-called what is that, Europe or over there, to England and all the other places that they so-called said that they were at, right? So we know the 10 tribes, that's not biblical. The 10 tribes did not go to England. You know what I mean? And yeah, year and a half, and that same region is called Arzrith, right? Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come, right? Which is the great awakening, right? Which is that now. So this is Isaiah 55:11. So shall my word be that go forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. So when the Lord says something, he doesn't go says a word and then retract it. Well, maybe I didn't really mean it like that. I really meant to say like this. No, the Lord, what he said he meant. So when he says the children of Israel is my people, that's going to be his people forever. You know what I mean? Even when he was telling Moses, think about it. Even when he was telling Moses, move out of the way. I'll destroy these people and I'll make another people after you. When he was saying that, Moses was still what? An Israelite. You know what I mean? So even when the Lord says that he's angry, he's going to destroy you, or he said he repent from the thing that he said that he was going to do, it's not saying he changed his mind about giving you the punishment or the reward. It's more of just saying, you know what? I see that you come to this thing, or he's answered the prayer to someone else. So I'll repent of it, and what I'll do is I'll limit it. So that's why even like when he did Moses, no, I'm not going to destroy him right now then, because I'll just make him go walk around the desert in 40 years and I'll still destroy them. They'll all still be punished, but it's going to be within that 40-year period of walking around in the desert before you can get into the promised land. So they all still got their punishment, right? There's no sin left unpunished. And so this is Malachi 3:6. For I am Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai. The reason why I say it that way is because it's always been Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, right? Before the foundation of the world. Yahweh's the Father, the Son, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, even the other angels who were under Yahweh Shai, who created the earth. It was Bahasham Yahweh Shai. You know what I mean? So I change not. So the Lord doesn't change from before the foundation of the world. It's always Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, and that's it. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Why? Because the Lord was saying, and the Lord said He repent. It's basically saying, you know what? I'm not going to destroy all of Jacob. I'm going to take a remnant out and save the remnant. So I'm not going to destroy all of you, because my thought in my mind is to really destroy all of you. But for, the promise that He gave to Abraham, the promise that He gave to Isaac, to Jacob, and then even to David, because David said there will always be someone on his throne. If He just destroyed all of Israel, how can there always be someone on His throne? See, and that's another thing that these Christians don't like to talk about. So that's why the Lord says, before you even look, that's the best part about this. That's why I like to tell people, explain to them this thing right here. Or actually, you explain to me, why did the Lord have this where He says, I am the Lord, I change not? And it's just before you go into the New Testament. So that way, when you get into the New Testament, you don't get some type of new thing in your mind that you think it's something else, right? Because He always said that there was going to be a throne for David forever. And then that is exactly right when you get in the New Testament, it goes right into that. Who's an Israelite? The book of the generations of Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach, because that's Greek. There's no J's, and it's a Greek name. Christ, it's all fictitious. It's nonsense. The son of David, the son of Abraham. Then you go through all these things, lineage, going down to, and I begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David, the king, right? Who the Lord said that it was going to be a throne of David forever. The king, and David begot Solomon, which is Yahweh Shai through the Spirit. If you got ears to hear, if you got understanding, Solomon, of her that had been the wife of Uriah's, right? And he put that because that was the sin of David, Then you go all the way down to 21, and it just gives you all the generations. She shall bring forth a son, and thus shall call his name Yahweh Shai. Not that Jesus stuff is all BS. There's no such thing as Jesus, for He shall save His people, which are Israelites, from their sins, which the laws are only given to Israelites. So before you can even get into that thing, you have to remember that the Lord has given the throne to David forever, who is an Israelite. So say this is this so-called spiritual Israelite thing that they say. Let's pretend. Why don't they ever make sure they establish the actual Israelites first? And then you can't do that unless you go back to prophecy. And when we bring up Deuteronomy 28, to them it don't mean that. That doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that. Well, that doesn't mean that. Oh, you should go into slavery on ships and be sold there. Well, who has that happen to? That only happened to the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. Well, you know what? That don't mean that. Well, that's exactly what it says. See? But then they'll turn around and say the thing that we're saying when we're breaking it down. Oh, that doesn't say that. You have to read it for exactly what it says. Well, ain't that exactly what it says there? You should go into slavery on ships and you should be sold when you get there to your enemy. You know, this are things that they play, you know, they play games basically. Yeah, so, yeah, the crazy thing about vocab, he was saying something about those so-called British Israelism, that they were saying that once they felt like they knew that they were part of the people, which they couldn't have been because they're talking about owning rivers and owning this and owning that and basically having a government. When the Israelites will not have a government, they'll be under in subjection unto the heathen, right? Not ruling, because Brit was ruling, and British is still pretty much ruling. They rule over America, you know, under guys, right? So, so they're in rulership. They were ruling pretty much the known world at that time. They even parts of China, you know, like Hong Kong. They were ruling, you know, what is it, Jamaica and stuff like that. Places like that. They were ruling it. They ruled America, parts of America for so-called until they had their fake Revolutionary War. You know what I'm saying? The fake Boston Tea Party, which is fake. It was, you know, but regardless, and they had their so-called rebellion, whatever, this and that. But like I said, I was trying to say, if I go to China, I expect to see people doing Chinese things. It's the land. Watch, because right here, there's a reason why I'm saying that. It says, and thus even thyself shall discontinue from thy heritage. Because vocab like to say heritage. Heritage, that just means land. But when I get to that land and those people are there, I expect to see people speaking Chinese, doing things that Chinese people do, which really they're Moab. But when you go different between Moab and Ammon, which are the Japanese, if I go to Japan, I can't say, oh, Japan, oh, it's just like China. No, their whole mannerism, everything, their heritage, which will be their language, their food, the way, the whole mannerism of how they get down would be totally different than China. Even here in America, a person that's from Tennessee, you can hear it in the way they speak. A person from Boston, New York, whatever, you can hear it in the mannerism of the way they speak. Right? If I go to New York, I expect someone to be doing New York things. If you go to LA, you expect people to do LA things. You're not expecting them to do New York things in LA because that's not New York. It does, you know, doesn't make sense. You know? Just to be like, oh, that just means the land. Okay. That I gave thee, right? What's the land that the Lord gave? Right? Israel, that land, the land of Canaan, right? And I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thus knowest not. Well, we didn't know nothing about America, right? And the natives who you put on ships to in the 1500s, and the so-called Mexicans that you put on ships in the 1500s, and the so-called Puerto Ricans, and then you know, basically the Northern Kingdom, the so-called basically they're Indians, so-called Indians, the North American Indians, whether they're Puerto Rican or Mexican, those are North American Indians, right? So you put those Indians on slave ships in the 1500s. In the 1600s, you had Judah. So we went to a land that we didn't know. Even if when you're on the land like Gad, this is their land. When someone takes over and start ruling, it's still like a land you didn't know. Like after you shot and killed most of the goddamn buffalo, you knocked off all the dodo birds. That there's no more dodo birds. That's like a land I don't know now. As far as I ever known, there's always been dodo birds. There's always been plenty of bison, or what they call buffaloes, right? That's a land I don't know now. So, and then what, we had to serve you. You're not a friend if you come over here to murder me and kill me, take my land and enslave me. You're not my friend, right? It says, yeah, in the land thus know it's not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. So when you go into the Deuteronomy 28, right? Especially after 15, when you go into those curses, this is the Lord saying, my anger will burn forever. So this thing is perpetual, which that's basically what the Israelites were going through. They'll get redeemed, get saved, be good for a couple years, go back into sin. The Lord sends someone else, pick them up, put them into slavery. And in that process, it happened over again. And it's forever, because the word of God is what? Forever. You know what I'm saying? I'm always going to do this to you. If you don't obey, this is what's going to happen to you. But this time, the Lord said, look, this time when you go, you're going to discontinue from your heritage all the other captivities that never happened to them. So what captivity has happened to the Israelites that they don't even remember who they are? That all of a sudden no one knows who the Israelites are, and the people who say that they're the Israelites do not fit the prophecies. Yeah, so this is Ezekiel 37:24. And David, my servant, shall be king over them, who? The Israelites. They shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgment, which is talking about the law, statutes, and commandments. And this is talking about the end times, the end days. It's not talking of back in the old time. It's talking about the actual kingdom of heaven. And they shall walk in my judgment, which is the law, statutes, and commandments that was given to Moses, which really was given from the foundation of the world, from the beginning. And observe my statutes and do them, right? Which, like I was saying, when you go into this thing, before you even get into the New Testament, like I was saying, it was the Lord changeth not, right? So the first thing is the kingdom of David, which is the Israelite, shall be forever, and it shall always be an Israelite on that throne. So where's your Israelite that's on that throne? And it tells you that Solomon was what? Black. But of course, all that doesn't mean as the, you know what I mean? As the tints of Kedar. Kedar means what? Dark skin, right? And then obviously these so-called British Israelism, whatever, has more sense than these regular so-called Christians. I mean, because they at least know that the 10 tribes were missing, even though they try to say the 10 tribes went over there. And then they do kind of somewhat have an understanding that only Judah, Benjamin, and Levi came back from the Babylonian captivity, but they only said Judah and Benjamin. But that's still better understanding than what a Christian has, because a Christian don't even understand any of that. Yeah, there were some scattered so-called Northern Kingdom, but for the most part, it was mostly only Benjamin, Levi, and Judah there, right? So your nationality is important, right? Especially when you go right here, Ezekiel 37:16. Moreover, thus, son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah, right? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and for the children of Israel, his companions, which will be Benjamin and Levi. That's his companions. Then take another stick, which means separate, another stick, and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, for all the house of Israel and his companions, so all the people who were under Ephraim, right? Jeroboam and Rehoboam, that was the time of the kingdom splitting. But a Christian don't know that. That's see, why vocab ain't teaching that? Right? And join them one to another. This is a future prophecy. Come on, man. This is future. This is only happening to this day. Right? During Abba Bibin's time, from that time, who everybody has a problem with was it Ariah? Right? But basically, they have the 12 tribes chart. Right? And everybody has an opinion or nonsense about the 12 tribes chart, but this is exactly what the scriptures are saying, which the so-called white British Israelism don't have that. The so-called Jewish don't have it. And the thing that they do have now, that they all of a sudden have it, because they do have one now, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit prophecy. It doesn't fit Genesis 49. It doesn't fit Deuteronomy 32. Right? It's 32. I think it's 32, yeah. Or 30, is it 32 or 33? It's either Deuteronomy 32 or 33 when it goes about the same thing about telling what's going to be happening in the latter days as far as prophecy. Your thing doesn't fit those narratives either. The only one it fits, the only people on the planet it fits, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, and then those people who were affected by the slave trades, or those people who are affected on their day-to-day life, because what the spirit bear witness. Because what are they doing over there in Ukraine to the so-called black people? Your spirits bear witness that you're Esau, Edom. The world is supposed to cry for you, but at the same time you're being very nasty. You're being very nasty to other people, right? But and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thy hand, right? One nation again, right? This is talking about when the curtain ripped in the temple, when the Lord was crucified, and it ripped the what do they call it? The partition, whatever. It's talking about it's ripping the split between Judah and Ephraim. And they're going to be one people again. That's basically what it's talking about. So your nationality is important, right? And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, What thus not show us what thus meaneth by this? So when we're out there on the highways and the byways, we have the 12. A lot of times people look at that. What's this? That's people. What's this? A lot of people actually ask, what does this mean? You know what I mean? So that in itself is fulfilling prophecy, right? And say unto them, Thus saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the land of Ephraim. In the hand of Ephraim, Salakia, in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows, right, with all the people that's under Ephraim, and put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand, and the sticks whereon thus writest shall be in thy hand, shall be in thy hand before their eyes, as one people, and thus say, and say unto them, thus saith Yahweh B'Shem Shai, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen. Wait. Come on now. You can't be ruling over a people and be taken away from the heathen at the same time. You literally have your own, man. You're running the banks. You're running countries, corporations. So you're not in subjection. Come on, man. I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be their king, which is talking about King David. So where's King David? Because this is future, and you're saying you're already in the land, so where's King David? Where's even the throne of David? Because when you're in Israel, you're not saying, oh, this is the throne of David. But then the throne of David is supposed to rule over the entire world. You're not ruling over the entire world. You're beefing. You're scared of Russia right now. You got some type of magnetic force field dome that goes around Jerusalem for protection. You ain't got the Most High. You know what I'm saying? You're calling your technology the Most High. You know? Shall be their king, shall be king to them, and to them all, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. So, call Loyim Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai B'Shem Rakal Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who grew well. Salutations to the Akim and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking their lives more now than ever. The hopeful elect, the elect. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel and have come back to the fold. Shalom. And to you sisters, you Akwathium, who have come back to the fold, listening, learning in silence, whether it's unto your own husband or the men of Great Millstone, and have come back to the fold. Shalom. Yeah. And obviously your nationality, the nationality of the Israelites are important. You can't be the Jew first and then to the Gentiles until you get to the Jews. So who are the Jews if those other people don't fit the prophecies? So, yeah, death to America.